If you can solve it, I'll do whatever you say. The Christmas party falls silent as Victoria points at me. Hey, Thompson, you're just a high school graduate, right? Let's see if you can handle a real challenge. I maintain my composure, meeting her gaze steadily. I'll give you a problem that even Harvard students struggle with. If you solve it, I'll do anything you say. But if you can't, well, how about being my personal coffee boy for a month? The room buzzes with whispers. I stand up slowly. All right, I'll take your challenge. Victoria's lips curl into a triumphant smirk. Good. Here's the problem. Let's see what a high school dropout can do. I glance at the complex equation she's written on the whiteboard. 3 seconds is all I need. As I approach the whiteboard, I can feel all eyes on me. The tension in the room is palpable. Director Russell, is this truly a Harvard-level problem? Of course, it's from my advanced calculus class. No way a high school graduate could solve it. I allow myself a small smile. We'll see about that. As I start writing on the board, gasps of surprise ripple through the crowd. Complex equations flow from my marker, filling the whiteboard. I hear Emily whisper to Robert, "Is Jake really solving it?" Robert replies quietly, "Jake's been studying on his own for years. His mathematical skills are off the charts." I put down the marker and turn to face Victoria. "I've solved it. 3 seconds, as promised." The color drains from Victoria's face as she stares at my solution in disbelief. I address the room, my voice steady and clear. Academic credentials aren't everything. What truly matters is dedication, hard work, and the willingness to learn. I hope this demonstrates that we shouldn't judge people solely on their educational background. Little did anyone know, this moment would mark the beginning of a dramatic change in our company. I apologize for the confusion. Here's the English version of the protagonist's background. My name is Jake Thompson. I'm 36 years old this year. I started working right after graduating high school. In society's eyes, I'm just a high school graduate. Family circumstances prevented me from going to college, but I didn't want to use that as an excuse. So, I've been working hard and studying independently ever since. I've always had a strong interest in mathematics. Solving complex equations became a form of relaxation for me. Whenever I had free time, I'd solve problem sets and participate in online communities competing for calculation speed. Now, I work in the sales department of a major stationery company. It's been 5 years since I joined, but the handicap of my educational background is significant. I always feel like I'm being looked down upon by those around me. Director Victoria Russell's treatment of me is especially harsh. However, I have something to be proud of. It's the knowledge I've gained through hard work and my exceptional calculation skills. Although self-taught, I've managed to master university-level mathematics and even solve problems beyond that level. But there's never been an opportunity to showcase these abilities at work. It's not directly related to my sales job, so I've been quietly doing my work, enduring the occasional contemptuous glances. Only my supervisor, Robert Taylor, knows a bit about my abilities. He happened to catch me solving math problems once. Since then, he's been looking at me a bit differently. When Director Russell challenged me with a difficult problem at the Christmas party, I instinctively knew this was my chance to show my true abilities. It's not about academic credentials or titles. What really determines a person's worth is their actual capabilities. For me, who has lived believing this moment was the time to prove my years of effort. It was the spring of my 5th year at the company. I vividly remember the day when the department's personnel changes were announced at the start of the new fiscal year. That morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, determined to make this the year I'd finally overcome the stigma of my educational background. The office was still quiet, with only a few colleagues silently starting their work. I took a deep breath and headed to my desk, my heart filled with resolve. However, my determination was about to be put to a severe test. The office door swung open forcefully, and Director Victoria Russell strode in, her presence immediately commanding attention. She was dressed in a brand new designer suit, an expensive handbag dangling from her arm. As usual, she was surrounded by her entourage of sycophantic employees. "Good morning, everyone. It's the start of a new fiscal year. Let's all work hard and stay focused." Her high-pitched voice echoed throughout the office. I was quietly continuing my work at my desk, but couldn't help looking up at her voice. Our eyes met, and I didn't miss the flash of disgust that crossed her face. "Oh, Thompson, you're unusually early today." She addressed me in a tone dripping with sarcasm. I maintained my composure as I replied, "Yes, Director. I heard there would be an announcement about personnel changes today." "I see. But that doesn't really concern you, does it, after all? A high school graduate like you getting a promotion. Well, let's just say some things are beyond reach." At those words, the eyes of everyone in the office focused on me. I maintained a calm exterior, but inside, anger was bubbling up, no matter how hard I worked. It seemed impossible to overcome the wall of academic prejudice. The frustration gnawed at my heart, but I refused to let it show on my face. Victoria seemed to be enjoying my discomfort. She continued, her voice laced with mock concern. "But don't worry, Thompson. I found the perfect job for you, one that should be more suited to your capabilities." "What do you mean, Director?" "Starting today for 1 month, I want you to manage the inventory in our warehouse. That should be just right for someone with your educational background. After all, we can't expect too much from a high school graduate, can we?" I was stunned. Inventory management was typically a job for new recruits. To assign such a task to someone who's been working here for 5 years was clearly a demotion, a public humiliation designed to put me in my place. However, I knew I couldn't defy Director Russell's decision. Gritting my teeth, I managed to answer without betraying the turmoil inside me. "Understood, Director. I'll do my best." Victoria's smile was one of pure satisfaction. She had won this round, and she knew it. "Good. Oh, and don't forget to clean the warehouse too. We want to make full use of your talents." At those words, I could hear suppressed laughter from around the office. It took every ounce of my willpower not to react, to maintain my dignity in the face of this blatant humiliation. From that day on, my work life became a grueling struggle. I spent my days carrying heavy boxes, cleaning the dusty warehouse, and endlessly checking vast amounts of inventory. The work was physically demanding and mind-numbingly repetitive, a far cry from the challenging sales role I had worked so hard to excel in. Every night I'd return home late, my body aching and my spirit tested. But even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, I refused to give up. I continued my self-study, often staying up late into the night to keep my skills sharp. I was determined not to let Victoria's attempts to belittle me succeed. One day, while I was working in the warehouse, Victoria came for an inspection. Her heels clicked on the concrete floor as she surveyed the area with obvious disdain. "Well, Thompson, you're working hard, I see. This job suits you, doesn't it? It's so straightforward, perfect for someone of your background." I felt something inside me about to snap. The constant belittling, the sneers, the attempts to crush my spirit. It was almost too much to bear, but I knew losing my cool would only prove her right. Taking a deep breath to calm myself, I answered as professionally as I could. "Thank you for your concern, Director Russell, but I believe I'm capable of much more than this. I'm always ready to take on more challenging responsibilities." Victoria looked surprised for a moment, clearly not expecting such a composed response, but her cold smile quickly returned. "Is that so? Well, Thompson, let me remind you of something. In this world, academic credentials do matter. They open doors that remain firmly shut for people like you. I can't expect much more from a high school graduate. Know your place, and be grateful for the opportunities you're given." With those final, cutting words, she turned on her heel and left, leaving me alone in the dusty warehouse. The sound of her heels faded away, but the sting of her words remained. As the door closed behind her, I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The pain helped me focus, helped me channel my anger and frustration into determination. I made a silent vow to myself. This humiliation would not be the end of my story. It would be the fuel for my determination to succeed, no matter what obstacles Victoria or anyone else put in my way. Even while working in the warehouse, surrounded by boxes and dust, I didn't neglect my studies. Every free moment was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to prepare for the day when I could finally prove my worth. I knew that day would come, and when it did, I would be ready. Little did Victoria know, her attempts to break me were only making me stronger. Each sneer, each demeaning task, each dismissive comment, they all became reasons to push harder, to reach higher. I was determined to show her and everyone else that true worth isn't measured by a degree, but by dedication, perseverance, and the willingness to never stop learning. The warehouse might have been Victoria's idea of putting me in my place, but for me, it became the training ground for my upcoming battle. A battle not just for my career, but for recognition of the value of hard work and self-improvement. And it was a battle I was determined to win. After a month in the warehouse, I was finally able to return to the sales department. However, Victoria's harassment didn't end. If anything, it escalated, becoming more subtle but no less demeaning. It happened during a morning meeting on a crisp Monday. Victoria was explaining a new sales strategy, her voice filled with the usual self-importance. Our new product line is targeting college students. Everyone. I want you to think back to your college days and try to identify their needs. What would have made your studying easier? What would you have spent money on? At those words, I tensed up. I could feel it coming, the inevitable jab at my educational background, as if on cue. Victoria's gaze, sharp as a predator's, turned towards me. Oh, Thompson, I forgot. You didn't go to college, did you? Perhaps we should assign this task to someone else, someone with relevant experience. All eyes in the meeting room focused on me at once. The air felt thick, suffocating, but I refused to let her see me sweat. Keeping my voice steady, I responded, "With all due respect, Director Russell, I believe I can handle this task. I've been researching current college student trends extensively." Victoria looked surprised for a moment, clearly not expecting me to challenge her, but her cold smile quickly returned, a shark sensing blood in the water. "Is that so? Well, Thompson, while your initiative is noted, I think we both know that actual experience trumps research. Why don't you focus on supporting the team instead? I'm sure there are plenty of simpler tasks you could handle." I gritted my teeth, feeling the frustration building inside me, the constant undermining, the refusal to recognize my abilities. It was maddening, but I knew I couldn't let it show. Not here, not now. "I understand, Director. I'll do my best to support the team in any way I can." Victoria nodded, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. She had won this round, or so she thought. After the meeting, the new product project began in earnest. Despite being sidelined, I threw myself into the work. I conducted extensive market research, exploring college students' needs from every angle. I worked through lunch breaks and stayed late into the night, creating detailed reports and brainstorming innovative ideas. On the day of the interim report, I submitted my proposal with confidence. I had poured everything into this, certain that the quality of my work would speak for itself. However, Victoria's reaction was as cold as ever. "You've certainly been busy, Thompson, but as expected, opinions from someone without actual college experience lack authenticity. We'll keep this on file, but I think we'll go with Johnson's proposal instead." With that, she pushed my carefully prepared report to the corner of her desk, barely giving it a glance instead. A proposal from her favorite employee, a recent Ivy League graduate, was adopted. The injustice of it all burned inside me. I knew my proposal was solid, backed by data and innovative thinking, but none of that seemed to matter in the face of Victoria's prejudice. As the meeting progressed and I listened to Johnson stumble through his half-baked ideas, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I had to speak up, for the sake of the project if nothing else. "Excuse me, Director Russell. I think there's room for improvement in the adopted proposal. My research shows that college students are looking for products that integrate digital and analog functionalities. If we could incorporate..." Victoria cut me off mid-sentence, her voice sharp. Thompson, we've heard your opinion, but this project has already been decided. A high school graduate like you doesn't have any more say in this. Know your place. The atmosphere in the meeting room froze. My colleagues averted their eyes, no one daring to come to my defense. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of Victoria shuffling her papers. I felt like my chest was about to burst with frustration, not having my abilities recognized, being judged solely on academic credentials. The unfairness of it all was overwhelming, but I knew getting emotional here would only prove Victoria right. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. I understand, Director. In that case, I'll do my best to support the team in implementing the chosen proposal. Victoria looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. Good. You'll be in charge of making copies and organizing documents. Try not to mess that up, Thompson. With those parting words, she stood up and left the room, her heels clicking against the floor, each step a reminder of the distance between us in her eyes. As the other team members filed out, my colleague Emily approached me, concern etched on her face.
Jake, are you okay? That was pretty harsh.
I managed a bitter smile, appreciating her support, but not wanting to drag her into my problems. Thanks, Emily, but I'm fine. This isn't over yet. Someday, I'll definitely be able to prove myself. Emily looked worried but didn't push further. As she left, I remained seated, staring at the proposal I had worked so hard on, now discarded and forgotten. From that day on, I was assigned to support the project in the most menial ways possible, making copies, organizing documents, fetching coffee for the team. Tasks designed to remind me of my place in Victoria's hierarchy. But even as I performed these mundane duties, my mind was working overtime. I didn't give up on my ideas every day during these monotonous tasks. I continued to refine my proposal. In moments when no one was watching, I kept interviewing college students, collecting data, and analyzing trends. I knew that sooner or later, an opportunity would present itself, and when it did, I would be ready. Victoria might think she had put me in my place, but she had no idea of the fire she had ignited within me. This wasn't just about a project anymore. It was about proving that true value comes from dedication and hard work, not just a fancy degree. As I watched the project stumble forward, hampered by short-sighted decisions and missed opportunities, I silently vowed to myself, this setback is temporary. My time will come. And when it does, I'll show everyone what I'm truly capable of. Victoria's reign of academic elitism was nearing its end. She just didn't know it yet. The new project wasn't progressing as smoothly as Victoria had anticipated. The strategy devised by her favorite Ivy League graduate, Johnson, had a significant gap with the actual needs of college students. A month after the launch, sales were barely reaching half of the target. On the day of an emergency countermeasures meeting, the atmosphere in the conference room was heavy with tension. Victoria's face was clouded with frustration and barely concealed anger. Can someone explain to me why we're in this situation? How did we miss the mark so badly? No one dared to answer. I sat quietly, remembering my research results and ideas that had been so casually dismissed. If only they had listened to me then. The thought burned in my mind, but I kept my face neutral. Suddenly, Victoria's sharp gaze turned to me, her eyes glinting with a dangerous light. Thompson, you were the backup for this project, weren't you? Why couldn't you predict this situation? Wasn't market research part of your job? I was taken aback by her audacity. She had rejected my ideas, pushed me to the sidelines, and now she was trying to pin the blame on me. The injustice of it all made my blood boil, but I knew losing my cool now would only play into her hands. Taking a deep breath, I answered as calmly as I could. Director Russell, I apologize, but as you might recall, my market research and suggestions were not incorporated into the final strategy. Victoria's face contorted with anger at my response. Are you trying to shirk responsibility, Thompson? This failure reflects on all of us. As a team member, you should have pushed harder if you truly believed in your research. This is exactly why we can't trust important projects to someone without proper credentials. A college graduate would have known how to make their voice heard. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. My colleagues looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and fear, but no one dared to speak up against Victoria. I clenched my fists under the table, feeling my nails dig into my palms. The constant belittling, the unfair accusations, it was almost too much to bear. But I couldn't stay silent anymore. This wasn't just about me. It was about the future of our company. Director Russell, with all due respect, I did try to voice my concerns. I submitted a comprehensive report detailing the potential issues with the chosen strategy and offering alternative approaches. This report was dismissed without consideration. Victoria's face turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you? You're just a high school graduate. What could you possibly know about marketing strategies or consumer behavior? Your job was to support the team, not to question decisions made by your superiors. As Victoria continued her tirade, the conference room door suddenly opened. The CEO walked in, his presence immediately commanding attention. What's going on here? I heard raised voices from down the hall. Victoria quickly tried to compose herself, plastering on a fake smile. Sir, we were just discussing the reasons behind our new product's underperformance. I was explaining to Thompson here about the importance of team cooperation and respecting the chain of command. The CEO's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the room, taking in the tense atmosphere and the defeated looks on most faces. Then, to everyone's surprise, he turned to me. Thompson, isn't it? I'd like to hear your perspective on this situation. I was shocked, but knew this might be my only chance. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain my analysis and improvement plan, my voice growing more confident with each word. Sir, based on my research, current college students are looking for more than just traditional stationery. They want products that integrate seamlessly with their digital lifestyle. For example, notebooks that can easily digitize handwritten notes, or pens that sync with note-taking apps. Our current product line, while high quality, doesn't address these needs effectively. As I continued to outline my ideas, I could see the CEO's interest growing. Victoria, on the other hand, looked like she had swallowed something extremely unpleasant. When I finished speaking, the CEO nodded thoughtfully. This is impressive work, Thompson. Your analysis is thorough, and your suggestions are innovative. Why wasn't this incorporated into our strategy? Before I could respond, Victoria jumped in, her voice slightly panicked. Sir, we considered multiple approaches, but we felt that Johnson's strategy was the most aligned with our brand image and target demographic. The CEO turned to Victoria, his expression stern. And yet, our sales figures suggest otherwise, Victoria. Why wasn't Thompson's input given more consideration? His ideas seem to address exactly the issues we're facing now. Victoria stumbled over her words, her usual composure cracking. Well, sir, you see, Thompson doesn't have a college degree, so we thought. The CEO cut her off, his voice sharp. I don't care about degrees, Victoria. I care about results, and right now, Thompson's ideas are the only ones that make sense to me. Turning back to me, the CEO's expression softened slightly. Thompson, I want you to lead a task force to implement these ideas. We need to turn this situation around quickly. I was stunned but managed to nod. Yes, sir. I won't let you down. The CEO then addressed the room at large. From now on, I want ideas evaluated on their merit, not on the academic background of who proposed them. Is that clear? A chorus of yes, sir, echoed around the room. Victoria looked like she had been slapped. As the meeting adjourned, Victoria approached me, her eyes burning with a mixture of anger and humiliation. This isn't over, Thompson. Don't think this little victory means anything. I met her gaze steadily, feeling a new sense of confidence. You're right, Director Russell. It's not over. It's just the beginning. As Victoria stormed out of the room, I realized that this was indeed just the start. The real challenge lay ahead, but for the first time in years, I felt truly seen and valued. The tide was turning, and I was ready to ride the wave of change. A week had passed since the CO's decision to put me in charge of the task force. The office dynamics had shifted palpably. Where once I was ignored or looked down upon, now colleagues were approaching me with ideas and seeking my input. It was a welcome change, but I knew the real challenges were just beginning. Victoria, though officially supportive of the CEO's decision, was clearly seething beneath her professional veneer. I could feel her eyes on me constantly, watching and waiting for any misstep, but I was determined not to give her any ammunition. On a particularly hectic Tuesday afternoon, I was preparing for a crucial presentation. We were pitching our revamped product line to Megalearn, a major educational supplies chain. The success or failure of this proposal could significantly impact our company's future. As I was reviewing my materials one last time, I sensed a presence behind me. It was Victoria, her face a mask of false concern. "Thompson, is the presentation preparation going smoothly? This is quite a big responsibility for someone of your background." I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral. "Everything's on track, Director Russell. I appreciate your concern." Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly at my calm response. "Well, let's hope so. You do realize how much is riding on this, don't you? One wrong move and..." She left the threat hanging in the air. I knew what she was doing, trying to shake my confidence, to make me doubt myself, but I wouldn't let her succeed. "I understand the stakes, Director. I assure you, I'm well prepared." Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but at that moment, my phone rang. It was from Megalearn, I answered, aware of Victoria hovering nearby, listening intently. "Hello, this is Jake Thompson." "Yes, I see, of course. We can accommodate that. We'll be there shortly." As I hung up, Victoria's eyebrows raised questioningly. "What was that about?" "It seems there's been a change of plans. Megalearn wants to move the presentation up. They've asked us to come now." Victoria's face paled slightly. "Now, but the preparation. Are you sure you're ready?" I nodded confidently, although inside my heart was racing. "I'm ready. The materials are prepared, and I know our proposal inside and out." Victoria hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. "I'm coming with you. This deal is too important to leave in the hands of..." "Well, let's go." I knew she had been about to say, "in the hands of a high school graduate," but had thought better of it. Progress of a sort. We hurried out of the office and caught a taxi to Megalearn's headquarters. The ride was tense and silent, with Victoria repeatedly checking her watch and shooting me nervous glances. As we entered the imposing glass building, we were immediately ushered into a large conference room. To our surprise, not only was the purchasing manager present, but also a man I recognized from business magazines as Megalearn's CEO, Alan Blackwood. "Mr. Thompson, Miss Russell, thank you for coming on such short notice. As it happens, our CEO, Mr. Blackwood, is in town today and expressed interest in hearing your presentation personally." I nodded calmly, while beside me, I could practically feel Victoria's anxiety radiating off her in waves. Alan Blackwood stood up, his imposing figure dominating the room. "I hope you don't mind this last-minute change. I'm quite interested in what you have to offer. Shall we begin?" His words were polite, but there was a challenge in his tone. I took a deep breath, ready to begin, when Victoria suddenly stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwood, it's an honor to meet you. Perhaps we should reschedule this presentation for a time when our entire team can be present. We wouldn't want to waste your valuable time with an incomplete pitch." I realized with a start that Victoria was trying to buy time, afraid that I wasn't prepared for this high-stakes presentation, but I knew we couldn't afford to show any hesitation. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Blackwood. We're fully prepared to present our proposal now." Blackwood raised an eyebrow, looking between Victoria and me. "Excellent. In that case, please proceed." Victoria shot me a panicked look, but I was already moving towards the front of the room. As I set up my materials, I heard Blackwood speak again, this time in fluent Mandarin Chinese to his assistant. I caught something about testing their adaptability. Without missing a beat, I turned to face the room and began my presentation in perfect Mandarin. "Blackwood, T,
tea.
Respected Mr. Blackwood and honored guests, thank you for taking the time to be here today. We are honored to present to you our latest line of educational products. The room fell silent. Victoria's jaw had dropped open in shock. Blackwood, on the other hand, looked intrigued and leaned forward in his chair. I continued the presentation, seamlessly switching between Mandarin, English, and even throwing in some technical terms in German when discussing our manufacturing process. I outlined our new product line, emphasizing how it bridged the gap between traditional stationery and digital learning tools. I explained how our smart notebooks could instantly digitize handwritten notes, how our pens could sync with popular note-taking apps, and how our entire ecosystem was designed to make the transition between analog and digital learning as smooth as possible. Throughout the presentation, I made sure to back up every claim with solid market research and user testimonials from our pilot program. I could see the MegaLearn team growing more and more engaged, nodding and whispering to each other excitedly. When I finished, there was a moment of silence before Blackwood burst